I.e., what's really going on? Bitcoin cryptocurrency, going to be taking a look at XLM against the US dollar tether on the Binance chart. I'm going to be taking a look at some of the technical aspects of price action moving forward. I'm going to be assessing some of the key levels I believe we're going to be interacting with in the kind of near future here. Going to be assessing where we could be finding support finally after this big and significant rejection off of the higher high around 69 cents. This rejection just seemed to be kind of lasting us kind of a few days, over a couple weeks now. And so we're going to be seeing where we could hopefully be finding support in the kind of near future here, and hopefully we can start getting bullish again on XLM and kind of continue the uptrend. Now, jumping right into it, let's assess this kind of prior price action leading up to this most recent consolidation and breakout that we've kind of been interacting with. So we do have these prolonged kind of like, we have these pumps after kind of prolonged sideways, and so I mean we have over 100% in kind of a week after tens of days of kind of sideways kind of thing, right? And so I mean we have these aggressive kind of pumps, over like 200% in a week kind of thing, like hundreds of percentages in quick amount of time, and then we have tens of days of sideways before these kind of aggressive pumps. So we are now coming out of what was like over a month of pretty much sideways before creating a higher high above 60 cents, which was the previous kind of rejection point that we had, the previous kind of swing high we had back in the middle of February. At that swing high of 60 cents there, we had a 48% pullback, roughly 48% pullback over the course of 10 days. And so now after this real significant sideways, this 40 days of sideways above 38 cents, kind of like under 43 cents and above kind of 37 cents. That was the kind of key range that we bounced kind of along for a good 40 days there. We had this really nice rally as soon as we found support along 38 cents. Finally, we had this really nice rally of 67% over the course of 2 weeks. Finally seeing a rejection off of 69 cents there, the higher high. We are now seeing a 47% pullback in 10 days. And so, I mean, after 9 days, we had that 8%, 47% pullback over the course of 9 or 10 days. And so we're seeing very similar price action to the very kind of recent rejection and the very kind of more recent price action here. And so we could, because it did it once, it could do it again. We could kind of consider that sort of mystical factor, and we could expect some price action to interact in the dreaded kind of range here, the sub 44 cents and above 37 cents. We could get kind of trapped in that zone for a period of time before kind of continuing upward. If we start to continue to fall through that and we start closing kind of below 38 cents, then we can kind of get more short-term bearish on XLM, and we could kind of see some more kind of lower levels there in the kind of near future. But I do believe we can kind of find support along this level, and this does seem to be a key kind of support range that we found support along along it kind of for over a month. And so this does seem to be like the key sort of range that prices will interact with when moving forward. There was a very strong bounce off of 35 cents there, and so that does still look like it kind of just drew out the kind of range we're going to be trapped in kind of moving forward. A more short-term bullish consolidation would be prices accumulating above that range. If we can not really trade in it, if we can stay above it, stay above 44 cents, that would be way more short-term bullish, and we can kind of see interaction with the kind of 60 cents range again in the kind of sooner than later. Although it does seem to look like we're going to get trapped sideways for a kind of prolonged period of time. When we slap on EngineeringRobo along with these key fettuccine lines, we see some sort of significant levels that we can be interacting with kind of moving forward here, and we see some very big and scary sell signals. Sell 2, sell 3, sell 1, sell 4. Hell, we have every flipping sell signal that you could really draw, and so that is very significant for price action, and that is going to be a very key factor in assessing price action moving forward. And so with all these sell signals present, we could very much expect some downside, some prolonged sideways perhaps, if we can kind of hold. If the long-term bullishness of XLM can come through, we can kind of hold sideways, I believe, kind of along this level that I was suggesting. That is correlating nicely with these Fibonacci lines, these 0.618 and these 0.5 above 35 cents and below kind of 43 cents, 44 cents was that kind of significant zone I believe we're going to get trapped in. And so when we consider this kind of previous sell for and hell signal that had us kind of trapped in this zone, even though we had the sell for and hell, we were able to hold sideways kind of through it, kind of thing, through these sell signals. And so, I mean, these are way more sell signals, and these are very different kind of, scenarios and different factors present. We still could very well hold sideways, but I believe for a longer period of time, we could very well have, tens of days of sideways along this kind of key range moving forward. Which is what I kind of suspect if we cannot kind of bounce right now and find support kind of almost exactly kind of where we are. When we consider the price of Stellar against the price of Bitcoin, we can see this kind of similar sort of sideways and rejection bounces off of kind of key levels. We're coming down. We've kind of bounced off of this sort of bottom of this kind of range that I suggested, this kind of Satoshi zone of kind of 671 and below kind of 1200, like 1204 Satoshi is the kind of significant zone I believe we could be bouncing in moving forward in the kind of midterm here. We now seem to be finding support along the top of that kind of 670 kind of Satoshi line there. Now we've had some price action just below 750 Satoshi and above 670 kind of multiple times. We had interaction with it kind of in the beginning of January, briefly at the end of February, and then for a period of weeks in kind of the middle of March and beginning of April. So now just a few days ago we bounced back into that zone, bringing price action kind of back down to it, suggesting that we could come back down to it and trade within it, which would be the more kind of like perhaps midterm bearish accumulation zone that we could get stuck in for a period of time. A more bullish, short-term bullish zone would be above that, above the kind of 750 Satoshi level there, before we kind of continue to attest the 1203 and the 1286 Satoshi range there. Slap on EngineeringRobo along with the sacred lines of Fibonacci. We see new perspective still. We have the buy 4, buy 2 moon, and prices closing above the 200-day moving average against Bitcoin, which is very long-term bullish still. We don't have the scary sell signals present on the Bitcoin chart like we do on the on the USDT chart. And so these Fibonacci lines are suggesting some key zones that we could very well interact with. And so, I mean, above the 0.5 and below the 0.382 Fibonacci line there could be the significant range that we could find support in the kind of short term. If we were to hold kind of where we are right now, this would be a way more short-term bullish zone that we could find support in. I suspect that we're going to interact below the 0.5 Fibonacci line and above the 0.618 line there, above 713 Satoshi and under 826 Satoshi. Was going to be the kind of range I do believe prices are going to find themselves in the kind of near future here, in my opinion. Prices continuing to close above this 200-day moving average is going to be far more long-term bullish for XLM, in my opinion. We're going to have to see how prices interact with that line moving forward. That is kind of what I'm sort of kind of waiting for if we can't find support kind of exactly where we are now. And so when we consider the price of Bitcoin itself against US dollar tether on the Binance chart, we can kind of see a sort of new perspective kind of come into play here, and we can kind of use this to assess kind of what is going to be happening moving forward if we can kind of finally find support from this big old dump, big old rejection off of all-time highs, or if we're going to continue to step into the dirty dumpage downward. We interacted with the high 40Ks very briefly a few days ago, which I've been suggesting since around the 60 kind of K range there. I was suggesting that if we were to continue to fall downward, and if we were to fail to kind of hold the 57K level, we could easily kind of fall downward and interact with the kind of mid 50Ks, and then fail to hold there, we can interact with the low 50Ks. And fail to hold there. The high 40Ks was my next kind of key level of support, and so right here. I do believe above, above 48K and I guess below kind of 51K is kind of the next zone I believe that prices could interact with kind of moving forward in the short term. Finding support along this level would be way more short-term bullish, and we could get a strong bounce and kind of come back up to where we came from. Although if we continue downward and we get rejected off of the 52K, 51K kind of level there, we could interact with the high 40s again, and we could If we fail to hold the kind of 48K level, I believe is going to be the next very significant support line. If we fail to hold 48K, we could fall very aggressively to the low 40s and see, like, 41K, 42K kind of very quickly after that. So we now are in a very kind of pivotal state for Bitcoin. There's, these very crazy super sell 2, sell 3, sell 4, hell, all these sell signals present still. But, even though there is, sell signals, we have a history of holding sideways or holding, finding support, and eventually kind of pulling back up, because the overall long-term bullishness of Bitcoin is ever so abundant, and smart money will always be buying Bitcoin at whatever level it's at. And so buy the dip is always going to be always going to be beneficial when it comes to Bitcoin, in my opinion. When we consider the fear and FOMO zone, we can see the FOMO zone all the way up there at, I believe, like 83K something. I want to say like 83.6. That's interaction with the FOMO zone is going to be the kind of pivotal kind of moment for Bitcoin. That's either going to be the end of the bull market or what's going to bring us to like 100K, in my opinion. The FOMO zone is going to be a very, very key and significant range for Bitcoin, and that is going to decide kind of what the sort of future of Bitcoin is going to look like in the long term, in my opinion. And so I do believe interaction with the FOMO zone to be inevitable this year, or the next kind of few months. But we do have to determine where we find support. Finding support kind of wherever we do is going to be the most bullish thing that's going to happen for cryptocurrency in the kind of past few months here. Cryptocurrency has already been so bullish over the past year that you never really know how it could get more bullish, but it will as soon as we find support. As soon as Bitcoin starts to come back up again, I expect everything to start to skyrocket as well. When we consider XLM against the price of the US dollar tether on the Binance chart, along with the fear and FOMO zone, we can kind of see a better idea as to why we are seeing this big, huge rejection. We are seeing the second interaction with the FOMO zone that XLM has had in its kind of past kind of few months here. And so, I mean, the rejection is the one of two kind of options that we see with the FOMO zone. Once you enter the FOMO zone, you can either tops or bot, and we rally aggressively up to higher highs, and we see some crazy gains in a very short amount of time, or we see the very abundant sell pressure kick in the FOMO zone. There's tons of traders taking profit in this zone. Sell pressure kicks in, and we get rejected, and we come back down to wherever we came from. And so this second rejection from the FOMO zone does suggest that this kind of similar sideways could very much occur. We come up, we get this rejection, and then we kind of trade sideways before we can interact with the FOMO zone again. I do believe we can come back up to the FOMO zone again in the kind of near future, perhaps in the next kind of few weeks to a few months. But we do need to see where we can recover from this big dirty dumpage and where we can find support. I believe below 43 cents and above 35 cents to be very significant range that we gonna have to see if we are gonna get trapped in the kind of near future here, or if we can finally close above and we can kind of be more short-term bullish. But lots going on, lots of indecision in the market. Watch out for changes in momentum. Watch out for EngineeringRobo's buy and sell signals. Try it. EngineeringRobo, free, link in the description. Check out all the social media down below. Subscribe here on YouTube, and tune in for the next one.